Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where we have the discussions that inform, entertain, and challenge educators to be the change. Each week, I bring in someone from education, social, and entrepreneurship, and we talk about ways and strategies and ideas on how you can level up and live your best life. I am your host, Dr. Will, and today my guest is Christina Hull. How are you doing, Christina?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being a guest on my show. And you came on my radar via LinkedIn, and I was looking at some of the things that you were doing, and you had the hair wrap going on and the African. I said, "Oh, look at this sister." I went to Tougaloo myself, and it was a great, experience going to an HBCU, and then watching how one of the videos in which you were speaking, to students. And I said, I really wanted to have you on the show to talk about your work and address some of the things that, some of us who are in education and are Black or people of color have been talking about and are thinking. So again, I would like to welcome you to the show. And for those who are watching, will you please, well, not watching now, I keep saying that, but I no longer do a live show. So for those who will be watching in the future on YouTube or listening to on SoundCloud or iTunes, will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, my name is Christina Hull. I have been an educator for 17 years. I'm from Port Allen, Louisiana, which is West Baton Rouge, and I currently reside in New Orleans, Louisiana. I've taught all grades, kindergarten through 12th grade, for 12 years as a health physical education teacher, coach, athletic coordinator, and then from there moved into administration, and I'm currently a vice principal of student affairs, over safety and discipline at the high school where I am currently. I am a former athlete, graduate of Southern University in Baton Rouge. I'm also a graduate of Clark Atlanta, and I'm currently pursuing a doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Phoenix. I can say that as far as education is concerned and being a Black educator, it's very challenging. And that goes back to just the history of education itself for Blacks in America. It's challenging as a Black educator because there are so many things that come up in education from the United States of America that are challenging for our students. And as the leaders in education, being Black in education in America, there are a lot of challenges that we have to face in doing our jobs and making sure that all students, not just Black students, succeed.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, who is Christina Hull? And I know you sort of went into this, but what does it mean to you to be an educator and to be Black?
I've always wanted to be an educator ever since I was about 5 years old. I had an awesome physical education teacher when I was in kindergarten, and I always said I wanted to be just like her. I also had an awesome physical education teacher when I was in middle school, Miss Allen, and I just knew from that point on, yes, I'm going to be an educator. Being a Black educator had its challenges, just growing up, for me, not feeling like I was given all of the information that I needed. I was always the type of student that continued to search for things that I didn't know. If my teachers did not cover a complete chapter, I would read the whole chapter myself and continue to the next chapter to make sure I get everything that I'm supposed to know. In college, I did the same thing. I can say that for me, in undergrad, I read every single textbook that I had from cover to cover, which is very strange, also being a student athlete. I felt that I never knew enough and I was never given enough. So being a Black educator going through a teacher education program at Southern University, I was always going for more and more and more. I wanted to know everything that wasn't in the book. I wanted to know beyond what I was being taught. And so I did a lot of research and things on my own into adolescent psychology, into being a better health and physical education teacher, from looking at it from the science aspect instead of just the movement aspect. So I felt like I was always not enough as a Black educator. I always had to be 100 times more than the person next to me, 100 times more than somebody of a different race. I felt that I had to work 10 times to 100 times harder than the next person because it would be just that much harder for me to enter in and receive a position in the school system. During the time when I graduated from Southern University, I also found that when I would go to different places and be in different, seminars or different courses with people from other schools, it was like Southern University, oh, you were in that program. It's like it wasn't good enough as opposed to the LSUs or to the UNOs and things like that. So I was like, well, I felt like I had a great experience at Southern University. And I always wondered why, if I put Southern University down on my paper, or I introduced myself as a student from Southern University, was I looked at as being less of qualified for an educational position. So it was always, to me, a fight to be 10 times better than anybody else, because I was always looked at as not being enough as a Black educator.
So I want to throw this out there to you, because you just mentioned going to Southern, and I went to Tougaloo myself. And to this day, outside of my doctoral program, I will say that being at Tougaloo was the greatest learning experience I had, to be around people who look like me, scholars who look like me, professors, administrators who look like me, and who all expected greatness of themselves and of everyone around them. And that just has such a tremendous impact on the individual I am today. How did going to an HBCU influence the person and educator you are today?
I feel the same way about the instructors that I had at Southern University. Ms. Deborah Clark, Joseph Hillstock, Mr. Kelly, Dr. Bennett. I mean, I had really great instructors that once I entered my major program, they were on us all of the time. It was a personal relationship. I can call them on the phone. I can walk into the office at not a scheduled time. I would see them walking around the campus. I could see them in the cafeteria and have a conversation. I can ask questions and receive all of the help that I need, because just like you said, they wanted to see all of us succeed. They wanted to see us not only succeed, but they want us to come back and take their jobs so that they can retire and know that they've trained someone to come in who was, great at what they're doing to give to the next generation. So I feel that Southern University, being at the HBCU, was an awesome experience for me. And it was a family atmosphere. We had a small cohort of students in our program, and we knew our instructors on a personal level and a professional level. And they prepared us, and they told us they were preparing us so that we can not only pass that national teachers examination at the time, but that we can go on to be great in whatever grade level and whatever we wanted to do in education, whether it be in physical education, whether it be in coaching, whether it be in athletic training or any of those fields, whether it be in just teaching science and the science of movement and moving on to teaching on the college level. We were going to be adequately prepared to do that. And I think they did a great job with all of us in that cohort.
Mm-hmm. So whether it's Black Lives Matter or the racial animus from the alt-right, or even issues that we are struggling with in our own community, we live in an age where there are a lot of things that are going on inside of the classroom as well as outside of the class. As a school leader, what is your stance on schools actually addressing those issues at the school?
As a school leader, and especially as a school leader over safety and discipline, I think we have a very, very challenging job. One, because there are so many outside influences that are influencing our students that we are not in control of, and that happen to spill its way into the school, into the school environment. The way that we are addressing it is we have to look at first of all, we have to be knowledgeable of the things that's going on. We have to know what's going on social media. We have to know what's going on in the news. We have to know what's going on around the world. We have to know what's going on within our city. Not only that, we have to make sure that our faculty and staff are also knowledgeable about those things and notice how it affects our students. And we have to know our students to know how it is affecting them. And then once we do that, we have to make sure that we're giving our students and we're giving our families a voice. When we give our students and our families a voice, they are more comfortable with sharing those things that are affecting them if there are some things that we may not catch. One way that I would say that I really, our school did a great job this past month, or still the same month actually, during the walkout. There were several school systems that did not want their students to participate in the walkout against gun violence. Our school was a school that wanted our students to participate. As a staff, we wanted to step back and allow the students to lead. Our students got together with a school that's right next door to ours, and they organized the walkout, and they did an awesome job. And I feel that by supporting them and letting them lead without us putting our 2 cents in, we gave them a voice, and we let them know that we are concerned, we care about what you care about, and we want to support the things that you need. I also feel like it's very important for faculty and staff and families to be trauma informed and understand how things affect young people. As adults, sometimes we look at children and you know, the old saying, children are seen and not heard. But there are so many things affecting our children these days. There are so many, the suicide rates are high, the self-harm rates are extremely high with our youth. And I'm talking about like middle school age and high school age, that we have to understand what's going on with them. So we definitely have to give them a voice. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do as educators, and provide trauma-informed faculty and staff so that our staff know what to look for and how to identify, and provide the appropriate supports for our students, be it restorative practices, strengthening those relationships, making sure that we have enough social workers on staff, guidance counselors on staff, making sure we have mental health counselors if that's what the demographics of our student body needs, to make sure that we are adequately supporting our students so that they can succeed in the ways they need to succeed, and get the support that they need.
Now, since you brought up restorative practices, I want to throw this out there to you, because there are a lot of teachers who are leaving the profession by the thousands. The teacher shortage is so real.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of educators are talking about, look, these kids are off the chain. They don't want to listen. They don't want to behave. They don't want to do the work. They just want to complain. I have parents who they just want to jibber jabber. And when you say, look, your child isn't doing the work, then they go run to the superintendent. And then you have, teachers who say, my administrator, all they do, evaluation this, evaluation this. They want these lesson plans. They want parent call logs. They want all of this stuff. And they feel overwhelmed, underappreciated, and for sure, they are underpaid.
Yes.
What do you say to those educators?
One, I believe that it's very important for educational leaders to have been an educator, because you understand from an educator's perspective if you have been in that position before. What I say to those educators is, one, we've all been children before, we've all been teenagers before, we've all been adolescents before. And the majority of educators have not all been the straight A good kid in the classroom. Some of us were the class clown, some of us were the difficult child in the classroom. And I think we have to think back to when we were students to understand that everything is not going to be perfect. Every day is not going to be perfect. And it depends on the type of school that you're in. I'm in an open enrollment public school. A third of our students are considered exceptional children. So it depends on where you are, the city that you're in. No school is going to be perfect. And so what I say to educators and teachers who feel all of those challenges is that, one, you're not going to have perfect days, but you can have a lot of great moments. And you're there, one, it's supposed to be challenging. It's not going to be easy because we're shaping the minds and the futures of young people. Children will like you one minute and hate you the next. So we have to make sure that, one, we're leading by example. We're being patient with our students. We are giving them so much content and activities to do that they don't really have a lot of time to get off track. And if they get off track, we have to know different strategies and ways to get them back on track in a way that's positive, that helps them to focus on the things that they need to do. We also need to make sure that we're planning and preparing our lessons so that they're so engaging that we are attracting those students. Now, mind you, we do know that every child's not going to like every subject, but you can have some things in place that are engaging for each student to be able to do so that they don't have that time to get off track and sidetrack. But I think that just being encouraging to educators, knowing that you've been there before, so you know what it's like, you know what's going on, and you know the children, you know that dealing with children and working with children on any kind of level is going to always be challenging, but also understanding that we are here to help them move on to the next level in their future. So we only see them for a short time, but they're going to be adults for the rest of their lives. And the impact that we have with them when we have them is very important for us as the adults, because a child is going to behave in a child manner. And we just have to understand that we're the adults and that we're the professionals, and our job is to be prepared for all of the different diverse learning abilities and behaviors that we're going to see, but to make sure that we meet them where they are and we guide them to be better, but also guide them in the path of success.
Okay. So please speak to the work that stirs your soul, and what dreams do you have for your students?
I'll speak to the dreams first, then the work. The dreams that I have for all of my students, and this is from students that I've taught way back in 2000, 2001. I wish for them to be whatever it is that they want to be, positive things. Whatever profession they want, whatever career they want, whatever journey that they want, I want them to have that, as long as it's positive and as long as it's going to be something that's impactful for their lives and also for the people that are around them. I believe that we are here and we have an expiration date as an individual, but I believe that we all should leave something behind that people will remember us by through our work and through something that we leave for our families or through the work that we do. Now back to the things that stir me and that keep me moving and going. I work with, not only am I an educator in a high school in Uptown New Orleans, but I work with Reaching for the Stars Foundation, which is a foundation in New Orleans that works with young youth, mostly young boys through mentorship, but then youth, girls and boys through sports skills, which is basketball. I also am a member of Omicron Zeta, and we do a lot of different service projects with the community. We have upcoming Dresses for Dreams for young ladies who do not have a prom dress. So we have a lot of sponsors that are sending in prom dresses and shoes. We have makeup artists coming in to make them up and all those different things. I work for the CEO Mind Foundation. I'm a change agent in the CEO Mind Foundation. And through the CEO Mind Foundation, we have several programs that are geared to uplifting the underserved, youth, and adults in the community. And so the thing that stirs me is making sure that, as I said before, that I am impacting everybody that comes in contact with me in some way, but I'm also leaving them with something that they can use to better themselves in life. So, I mean, it's so many different things. And as you say, you saw my LinkedIn page. We have Womanhood 101, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, where we're working with girls ages 10 through 14, just empowering them to learn how to empower one another, to not, constantly bicker with each other, to not tease each other, to not call each other's name, but to work together to build one another up. We have Manhood 101 coming up in June to teach our young men how to start a business, how to be a young man, how to do those things that will be beneficial for them and their offspring when they grow up. We have 1,000 Books Library, Black Books Library, where we have a compiled and have donated books coming into us that are about Black characters written by Black authors that most of our children don't get to see when they go to regular libraries. Kind of blended all in there, but this one is all of the books are about characters that look like the children in the community. And so I can go on and on, but what stirs me is just being able to impact our young people so they understand that they are powerful, that they are smart, that they are intelligent, that they are beautiful just the way they are without adding anything to themselves, and that they have the knowledge and the power within them to be whatever it is that they want to be, to go wherever they want to go and to do whatever they want to do, despite what they may see in the media, despite what people may tell them, they can still be and do whatever it is they want to do.
All right. All right. You work at a charter school. And
yes, I do.
Okay. I'm going to approach this with, you okay? I'm going to approach this with a little ease. And
I'm going to answer it with a little ease.
All right. So, a lot of folks who work in public education, particularly those in schools that I work in, what would be considered a traditional public school, when you hear the word charter, it brings a bad taste in your mouth. And when you see sort of people say the corporatization of K through 12 education and, you know, Betsy, whatever her name is, you know, Department of Education and her movement with
yes.
choice and charters and things. People are a bit leery of charters in that movement. Where do you see, I guess, public education failing Black and brown kids, and how can public schools course correct?
Whew. Well, public education, and I'm just going to be honest with you, was not originally created for Black and brown students. Historically, we were not supposed to read, we were not supposed to write. And even through the years, as we have been allowed to participate in public education, when we started participating in public education, we were given the outdated resources. We were given the outdated information. We were given books with pages missing. We were given misinformation. We're still given misinformation because we don't write the books. But through the years, I think that public education still falls short for not just Black and brown students, but for all students who live in certain demographic areas or certain geographical, areas. Poor neighborhoods still receive less resources and less monies for public education. And so I think that it just hasn't changed to me. I do think that the charter school movement had great intentions in the way that charter schools were introduced. I do believe that somehow it has gotten off track with the original intent for charter schools, and now it is a lot of privatized businesses coming in to take over the schools, which still goes back to historically, the United States of America, education was not meant for Black and brown students. So I still believe that we are falling short in educating Black and brown students. I do believe that the gap was never meant to close. However, I do still feel that we can create a new gap in our teaching of our students. And I say that because, once again, the gap was never meant to close. But there are still ways that we can not catch up, but be educated in ways that are beneficial for our children and our students who are behind in that gap. And that's through experiences, and that's through teaching the truth about education, and that's through inclusion of the contributions that we have made to society. I think that a lot of times our Black and brown students don't realize how much of an impact Black and brown people have made in the history of this nation. Therefore, they don't really see where they fit into the things that are being taught in the classroom. And I think that when we start pulling in those things to let them know, because I'll be honest with you, I'm 40 years old. And I was angry after watching, I can't think the name of the movie right now, after watching the movie about our women in NASA. I was just angry after I watched it. I sat in my chair and I was like, I cannot believe Hidden Figures. I can't believe I couldn't remember the name. I sat in my chair and I had my daughter with me, and I was angry, and I let the credits roll and the lights came on. And I said, I'm 40 years old. I looked at my daughter. I said, I'm 40 years old. I did not know that African-American women had anything to do with NASA in history. And I was angry. Then I almost cried. And I said to myself, what in the world have I not been taught? I need to know everything now that was not taught to me about us. And I feel that in public education, there are so many things that are left out about Black and brown children that they just don't feel relevant. They don't feel the relevance of the education that they're receiving because they're not seeing the contributions that we have made throughout history to make them even want to continue making those contributions today. And I think it's horrible that we're in that state. But once again, it goes back to who public education was truly created for. And I think that, yes, we can make those changes, but it takes us, one, not quitting the field of education. It takes us, two, entering the field of education to want to make those changes happen. And I say again for Black and brown children, but I think that it's for all of the diversity of children that we have. In the United States of America, we have a diverse group of children. And a lot of times we still don't even teach or cater to the needs of the majority of the children that are at some of our schools. Black History Month, which to me, Black history is every day, but we have schools now that no longer even celebrate Black History Month, and you may have the majority of your students who are African American. And so, but we have to look at, like I said, once again, the demographics of the students that we have at our schools. We may have African American students, we may have Hispanic students, we have Latino students, we have students who are Vietnamese, we have Japanese students, Chinese students, we may have a variety of different diverse children in our schools. So we need to make sure that we are actually culturally responsive to all of those students at our school. Because when we don't do that, then we are leaving them behind. And but it said, especially for our Black and brown students, they have to see relevance. And I go back to this. My daughter is at a school, and most of the things that she learns about African Americans at her school, I'm not going to say the school's name, is that they were slaves. And one day she showed me a video of something that they watched in class, where the young Black girl in the cartoon was serving the president. I think she was serving him cake or tea or something, and it dropped, and she was fussed at. And I asked her, I said, well, what other things have you learned about African Americans in history in your class? And she was like, oh no, that's pretty much it. We were slaves. I said, no, we were not slaves. We were enslaved, but we were not slaves. I said, we were kings and queens and mathematicians and doctors and herbalists and all these other different things, and we were enslaved. I said, so when you go back to class, make sure you say that, without getting in trouble, but make sure you say that. But I think that it's the way that we present ourselves to our students that may be keeping us in the condition, or keeping our students in some of the conditions that they're in. I know I said a lot. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. No, I mean, one of the reasons I brought that up particularly is because we are seeing a resegregating of the public school system. So those people with money,
yes,
are either moving to locales away from sort of the quote unquote neighborhood public school, or they are still live there because their house is dope, but they actually put their kids up in private school. So, and I didn't know, I'm going to be honest with you, I did not know my city, how white it was, until my wife and I went house shopping. And we would go to these houses and see these pictures of white kids and white families. And I would go, my school district is like 95%, Black. Where are these white people? Right. So, because their houses are in the school district.
In the school, right around the school, yes.
But they were nowhere to be found. And so when I see that, at first I got really sort of angry about it, but now I just really don't care, because them being gone doesn't mean that our kids are inferior or should receive an inferior education, because I went to Tougaloo. So I know what is possible for us. And that's, sort of why I ask you that question, because people make a lot of excuses. Oh, that school's not performing well because it's all Latino, or it's mostly Black, or mostly Asian, but they don't understand that just because that school is that doesn't, like, that's not indicative. That's not who they are.
Well, let me answer to your how can we course correct, because I don't think I answered that. I kind of went off on a tangent, but I think the way that we course correct is, like I said before, you have to look at the demographics of your students to know what your students need. And I think that when you have a large African American population of students, then we have to look at our English literature, the books that we are selecting for our students to read. We have to look at our social studies classes and our history classes, and what things are we teaching them from the history book, but also what supplementary materials are we giving to them as well that they need to know. They need to know about the wars and the different conflicts that we had, but they also need to know the things that are not reading in the book. So what other supplementary materials are we bringing in to teach our students? We need to make sure that we're up with the current events so they know that we're aware of what's going on, and we give them a voice in speaking about those things, and then look back historically at how those things that are happening today, what historical factors brought about things that are happening today. But I think we need to, one, be current. We need to be truthful with our students, and we also need to bring in courses that are relevant to not only their intellectual abilities and their intellectual growth, but also we need to prepare them for tomorrow. I mean, you know, we definitely need to know about history, but we need to make sure that they're prepared for the next years of their life. And as they go into adulthood and as they go into, you know, the term now is competing globally. I think, you know, as a whole, the United States of America, public education is not prepared to compete globally. And again, that's a system thing. We have to have a working class, and I'm not going to go into all of that. But I think that if we truly, truly want to course correct, we have to start at the elementary or preschool level, whichever level of education that starts in the area where you are, in the school system, and make sure we're preparing them for global competitiveness. And I say that starting with the school system, but of course we know all of these things start at home. And I think that as parents, we have kind of, not all, but as a whole, there are some things that we have to do better as parents in bringing our children up prior to them even entering into a school system, if we're putting them into a school system. And I can go back to my mom. I was 3 years old when I was learning how to write my name. My brother was in Head Start, my other brother was in kindergarten, but I was at home while they were away from school learning how to read and write my name and all of those things at 3 years old. And so, you know, I was prepared when I entered elementary school, because every book my brothers had, I was reading them at home right along with them, because my mom had all of us sitting there together. So I think that, one, we have to prepare our children prior to them entering into a school system. If we're going to enter them into a school system, not only do we have to prepare them, but throughout their journey through school, we have to make sure we're asking them and finding out things that are being taught to them. And we may have to reteach some things at home. And also, I believe that homeschool is a great thing. I truly believe that homeschooling is a great thing as far as how we want to build our children intellectually. Homeschool, I think, is a great model as well.
That's all right. No. I mean, I like it because, you know, this whole interview, because again, you know, from the work that I've seen you're doing, and this is, I think, the first episode I've ever had where I really sort of tackled these issues head on. You know, I'm really huge because my podcast season 4 has been really focusing on entrepreneurship and teachers really creating that side hustle.
Have to.
and taking ownership of the thing, knowing their worth and taking ownership of the things they put out there. But it's also important because, you know, on Twitter, I talk about, you know, this and, you know, building Black businesses in the community. And our children need to be taught ownership and creating and owning, like, you know, because the reality is we do need people who work at Facebook, but we also need someone to create the next big thing. And when I see kids walking around at the school, and I'm like, Jordans.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, Jordan hadn't played in about 30 years, and he's still getting a check from those shoes.
That's right.
He understood that the ownership was everything. And I want our children to understand that working for someone is not a bad thing. But when you own it, you change the game.
That's true. And I think that's very important. And that's one reason why I love the work that we do with the CEO Mind Foundation, because our biggest thing is teaching our children. We have a youth empowerment zone. And in the Youth Empowerment Zone, we have a financial literacy lab, we have a media lab, we have a growing lab where we're growing seedlings inside. We have an arts lab, arts and creativity lab. And we also, I think I said digital media lab. And we also have a games lab. And so these are the different things that we do with the children at the Youth Empowerment Zone, is teaching them, one, different skills that they can use and go out and immediately get a job doing. And then also showing them that you can learn those things that you didn't think that you knew how to do. And we are here to teach you those things. Last night, I pulled out the sewing machines and I was teaching my daughter how to sew. My mom taught me how to sew when I was in the 4th grade. You know, I wear a lot of African hair wraps. I sold one last night. You know, it's different things that you can do that you can make money. You know, a lot of people ask me, where'd you get your hair wrap from? I'm like, oh, I get it from copper bamboo. Well, can you make me one? I'm like, sure. I don't have a lot of time, but guess what? I can sew those. I have sewing machines at home, not a problem. But I also teach my daughter how to do that. I also have a business called Ma'at Adorned where I make jewelry. So I make bracelets and necklaces and things like that. I taught my daughter how to make bracelets as well. So when there was a kidpreneur Kwanzaa market at the book center out here in New Orleans, she was able to set up her little table and sell the bracelets that she made. So I think it's very important that we teach our children technology, how to create websites, coding, how to do all of the different things with digital media, how to do marketing and making different brochures and making a lot of different posters and different digital things that people need for their businesses, making business cards, making shirts, and all of those different things. And that's another thing that we do at the Youth Empowerment Zone. Children learn how to make shirts. They learn how to put the information into the computer, print it out on the vinyl, put it on the shirt press machine and make the shirts. And they're doing that on their own. So, you know, there are so many things that I believe that our children need to know how to do, because they do need to know how to learn to create and be a business owner. And so I think that's very important. And again, that's another thing that I'm into is SupportBlack.Biz. So that's www.supportblack.biz. Today is actually Black Biz Friday, where we encourage everyone to go out and eat at a Black restaurant, shop at a Black-owned business, and put dollars back into the community. But I think it's very important for our children to understand that, one, it's great if you work for somebody, but it's best if you work for yourself. That's not going to be an easy thing to do, but it is doable. And once you do that, you can also hire people within the community, keep dollars into the community so the community can build, you know. And I think that when they see that and they truly see how it works, then that's when they have that idea that, hey, I can. And I think that as the adults, we have to be an example of that by, one, not feeding into all of those fads that are from, you know, other designers and things like that, but feeding into our own. And I think it's also great that, I know I had a student who, he would always come with something that he sewed or he designed. He would cut things up and make these different accessories, headbands and things like that. And I'm like, hey, make me one. I will pay you for it. I will wear it. And when we invest in our children, they also get a feeling of support from us, and that keeps them and pushes them to go further as well.
Awesome. Now, the interesting thing of everything you just talked about, these experiences come from outside organizations and not from the school itself. Mm-hmm. Those classes aren't being taught. Those experiences are not being delivered to students. And when you mention being competitive on a global level, when you talk about entrepreneurship and technology and science, where do you see K through 12 going?
Okay. Well, let me make one correction. These experiences are happening in my school. We actually have a large CTE component. We have a large makerspace. We have engineering and all those different classes that are at our school. However, that's not at every school. And we do have opportunities for our students. All of them do not engage in it because that's not their choice, but we try to promote it to them so that they can be encouraged through, in their freshman year, introduced to things so they can make those choices when they get in their junior and senior year. Now, what was your question again about technology in schools?
Yeah. Well, when you look at what you're talking about in terms of business and technology, entrepreneurship, science, engineering, and we're looking at where AI and machine learning is coming into play, and with global trade, the world is so small now. Where do you see K through 12 going with all of these things becoming a reality in today?
Okay, in the United States of America, I hope that K through 12 is going to catch up everywhere with those things. I know we're trying to implement more STEM in schools. We're trying to implement more career technical education in schools as well. I think that if we really want to compete globally, all schools should be designed in that fashion. All schools should be designed introducing engineering, introducing those technological pieces that are happening right now, because it's not in the future. It's actually happening right now, but it's just not happening everywhere that we see it. And so we still are playing catch up, but we need to go ahead and introduce those things right now. And I think that should be across the board. Honestly, I believe that public education in the United States should have every school, if we're truly preparing all of our students, if we truly don't want any child left behind, if we truly want every child to succeed, then everybody should be afforded the same resources to do that. That means, excuse me, technological advances. There should be, excuse me, I'm getting excited here. There shouldn't be any schools who are behind in technology. What does that mean if you're behind in technology and the world is moving forward with technology? That means you're double behind. So I mean that everybody should be equipped with the resources that they need so that we are advancing in science, that we are advancing in technology, that we are advancing and being able to build things while we are still young. I believe that when we get to college, and some of the college engineering programs, they're now starting off with projects in your first year. If in high school you haven't had an opportunity to taste and delve into engineering and creating projects and doing these designs, then you're already behind going into your first year of college in engineering. So that means that if that's the level that you have to be if you're going to college in those different fields, if you're going to careers in those different fields, then it needs to be introduced to you in elementary school. At some form of fashion, it needs to be introduced to you in elementary school. So by the time you get to high school, you're already hands-on with these things. So by the time that you get to college or your next level of education, if it's not college or into a career, that you are already ready to build when you're of age, if there is such a thing as of age, because young people can still do it as well, you're already prepared to do that. And I think that in order for us to be there, and in order for us to be on that level, that it has to start young. And I think all of our schools should be prepared and have the resources that we need. And what gets me all of the time is that whenever funds need to be cut in states or in the nation, education is usually the funds that are being cut. But yet you still want us to be able to do these things at a certain level with very little resources. So that's always been confusing to me. Like, these are your standards, or this is what you want it to look like, or this is the rank you want us to have in the nation or internationally, but we don't have funding. And it's always being cut, or a program is being cut. So it's just confusing to me, and that we want to be at a certain level, but we're not giving the funding to do that.
This has been an awesome conversation, and I'm so looking forward to releasing this to my audience. Before we go, what is your call to action for those educators of color who see the school system as a place of hostility, or as a place not being a champion for students of color, for educators of color? They have interest in getting into leadership because they want to make those changes, but they feel as though it's just not going to be a good place for them. What do you say to them to encourage them to move beyond those concerns and to actually join the ranks of leadership?
One thing I must say, and it is a challenge. It's challenging to be an educational leader and to be a Black educational leader in the United States of America. However, if you want to see change, you have to make the change. I truly believe that if you want to see change, you have to make that change. And one way that you make that change is to actually become an educator and stay an educator. And I'm saying that more so, not to Black women. I'm actually saying this to Black men, because there is a shortage of Black men in education. You're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to be a millionaire as an educator. However, you are going to be impactful to the lives of so many children. And if you do that, then you will see in years to come how we can affect the change that we want to see. It doesn't happen in 1 year. It doesn't happen in 2 years. It may take a long time, but if you stick with it and you do as much as you can and go beyond, then those changes will happen. And I have one last story for you. I was getting my locks twisted the other day, and a young man was sitting in the chair, and he looked at me. He said, "You look familiar to me." And I was looking at him like, "I've never seen you before in my life, but okay." And he said, "Did you used to teach?" I said, "Yeah, a long time ago." And he said, "I remember you." And I was like, "Where do you remember me from?" He said, "You were my 6th grade PE teacher." And then I thought about it. His locks were long. And I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "I see it now." I said, "You didn't have any hair back then." I said, "And you were still taller than me," because I'm really short. I said, "You were way taller than me." I said, "You're way taller than me now." I said, "But wow." He said, "But you look the same." He said, "And I remember you." And I think that's something that's very important for educators and Black educators to remember. There's not only a shortage of educators, but there is a shortage of Black educators and a shortage of Black male educators. And our students need us. And I say that because, one, students like to see people that look like them. And just like I said, when we have the 1,000 Black Books Library, students are excited to open those books and read those books because the characters look like them. Our students love to see Black educators leading in their schools. They love to see Black educators teaching them, because that gives them another example of a successful person that looks like me, a person that I feel is very intelligent that looks like me, a person that I may inspire to be like when I get older. And so I think that for us to be those examples, to be those role models, to be those givers of advice and advisors, to be those change agents in the lives of our students, encourages them to move on and be successful in their lives. Now, will we be able to save everybody? No. Will we be able to impact everybody? No. But it only takes just one, because one person can lead to a generation of people. And so I say that to be a change agent is the most important thing, and that's the call to action. Be a change agent. Black educators, come on out. Black men, come on out to be educators. We welcome you and we encourage you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you again, Christina, for being a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Now, people, you know how I do this around here. The video will be going up on YouTube. I need you to subscribe, leave your comments. The podcast is going up on iTunes and SoundCloud. Again, I need you to subscribe and leave your comments. Your boy's trying to get Oprah on the show, and I need her to know just how dope we do it around here. So as always, people, invest in you, EDU, peace. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.